And we're live. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Would love for you guys to start the morning off. It's early morning for some of you that are here on the West Coast, 8 a.m. and about 11 a.m. for those of you that are on the East Coast. And no telling what time it is, no matter where you are in the world. So with that said, just wanted to, thank everyone for showing up for this very important event. If you were not here last time, let me give you a little recap on what we did. Last time we got really uncomfortable, and but we made it through, and we had some great accomplishments that came out of there, and people got to work. And so we're back here today to talk about the progress that we've had over the last few months, and to talk about where we can actually take this from going forward in 2020. So in the last event, I thought it was really important that I repeat for this understanding of why I decided to take on leading this event, and when Beth and I had the conversation, why it actually struck a chord within me. So I'll share with all of you that I am a proud Black woman by way of my ancestors who were taken from West Africa, brought to Haiti, mixed with Spaniards, and then sold to the Shackelford plantations in America. Once slavery ended, my ancestors migrated around, settling in Louisiana, and in the late 1960s, during the Great Migration to California Bay Area, my grandmother moved my father and siblings to Oakland, and then to Los Angeles, California, where my father met my mother, and I still reside today. I am a proud Hungarian Jewish woman by way of my mother, who was primarily raised by my grandfather, who survived the Holocaust and moved to the USA to start a new life. So if you can't tell by this message here, I am just a bona fide mutt. I am what happens when you mix the world together. But what that has caused over the years is that I have had a great divide within me. For when someone asks me to hate the Black side of me or to hate Black people, you're asking me to hate a part of me. When you ask me, or someone says that we hate white people or Spanish people, Latinas, you're asking me to hate a part of me. So with that said, when I had this conversation with Beth, I raised my hand, I stood out of my seat. I was more than excited to lead this conversation with all of you, because at the end of the day, we are the human race. We are one. And I got that message from my 15-year-old, where he said, Mom, what is it going to take? What is it going to take for us to all understand that we are one and we bleed red? Do we have to go to war with people from another planet? So if a young teenager can actually get this concept, I think it's going to be really great for us that if we come together and understand that if you're Black, if you're white, if you're Asian, Hispanic, no matter what, we are one. And if we come together, we can accomplish much more than trying to put any individual race down or to keep them from excelling to their maximum. So with that said, I am going to hand it over to the Maximum Beth, aka Beth Santos, who is the amazing, wonderful founder and CEO. Go ahead, Beth.
Thanks so much, Karisma, and welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We're so grateful to have you all here for our second edition of Moving Forward. And of course, we wouldn't be anywhere we would be without our incredible creator and host and moderator and secretary and organizer and program manager of all of the Moving Forward things, Karisma Shackelford. So Karisma, thank you so much for all of your dedication to this. I'm so excited for us to kick off part 2.
Yeah, most definitely. So Beth, I'm going to leave the stage because you're going to be kicking this off first thing in the morning, and we will bring on our guests from there. So I will leave.
Let's do it. And while we're getting situated and going into our first panel, I wanted to give a special thanks as well to our sponsor that's here today, making sure that this is all happening, and that's TripAdvisor. So thank you so much, TripAdvisor. I know they'll be speaking on a later panel. We're excited to hear their perspective, but they've been great to work with, and I really hope that you go and check them out. And also note that if you haven't been to Hopin before, before. It's actually a pretty cool platform how we do this. We have a little chat section where you can chat with other people. Just use the stage chat is going to be everything that's happening here on the main stage. We don't have any breakouts today, so you can stay in the stage chat, meet one another, tell us where you're coming in from, who you are. We'd love to have you. And then anytime we'll have small breaks in between our panels. And during that time, I would really encourage you to go check out the expo section. There's some cool businesses there and special benefits for all of you who are attending moving forward. So don't forget to check that out. We have a really cool, well, I'll let Justine give it away. I'm not going to tell everyone, Justine, what you're working on, but some really cool developments happening on the Wanderful side. We also have some really great resources for all of you. So definitely check it out. I hope you stay around for the whole day. And keep in mind that everything is being recorded. So I know it's a decently long session for a Saturday. You know, we're here together for 3 hours. So if you decide that you need to step out or you have another commitment, that's okay. We'd love to have you as much as we can. But if we can't, we are recording everything. So you'll be able to access it on the Moving Forward website, and it'll also be emailed to you. So that's it for some of our housekeeping. If you don't know anything about Wanderful, let me just tell you a quick second of who we are, and then I want to bring the panel in. Wanderful was created when I was traveling solo, actually, as a blog in 2009. I found that there was just so much need for real, authentic resources for women when we travel, and not things that are telling us, you know, what the best bikini is to wear or how unsafe it is. And that's really where Wanderful started. Now we're a global community of women who help one another travel the world. We have 50 chapters all across the globe. We have an online membership community that you can learn about in the Expo Center. But one of the things that's really important to us is not just giving women and gender diverse people the tools to get out there, but also really looking at what are some of the systemic issues in the travel industry that we need to be disrupting in order to make travel more accessible to everyone. So that's why we have events like What's Online that you might have been to a couple weeks ago, where we're talking about what the travel industry needs to do to change and evolve in 2021 at this point where we're kind of at a stopping point. And it's also one of the reasons why moving forward is really important to us, because travel does not have a great history in terms of supporting people of color. There is a lot of colonialism. There is a lot of travel is not always a positive. Sometimes travel is forced. Sometimes travel comes out of people's will. And I think it's important for us to recognize all aspects of what travel is. And so that's why I'm really proud to have this conversation, because as leaders in travel and as community builders in travel, we have a responsibility to speak out about this stuff. So with that, I want to bring in our first panel and invite them to the stage, because what we're going to do is actually take back whether you've been to the first Moving Forward or not. Our first event, we talked about what's going on in the travel industry, especially in terms of anti-racism, anti-oppression, and what needs to change. We did that back in June. Now we're here, July, August, September, 4 months later. And we're kind of talking about, so what happened? Has any change happened? Have we evolved in any way? Have we achieved any goals? Or are we still kind of sitting ducks? So as you can see, we've got our incredible panel with us. We have DeAnna Taylor, who is a senior editor at Travel Noire, Vincie Ho, the president of the Rise Travel Institute, and Martinique Lewis, president at Black Travel Alliance. Welcome, everybody, to the stage.
Hi.
Hey, Beth. Hi, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Great to see you all here. So the first thing I want to do, because all three of you are incredibly impressive, accomplished women, and I'd love to give you a minute to just introduce yourself and tell your story. You know, I think if I let you tell your whole stories, it would take us hours, because you all have done so much with your lives. But in a little bite size, you know, what's some of the work that you've done that really brings you to this panel today that you want to speak from? So I'll give you just a minute for each of you to just do some free talk introducing yourself. DeAnna, would you like to go first?
Sure. So as Beth mentioned, my name is DeAnna Taylor, and I'm actually the senior writer at Travel Noire. So I'm not the editor. I don't want to take all the credit, but I am the senior writer. It's okay. I am the senior writer at Travel Noire, but I am editor-in-chief of a publication called The Block, which focuses on Black creatives and Black creative entrepreneurs. But some of the work that I do is just really focusing on telling the stories of Black travelers, Black creatives, all around the world. So often, yes, our stories are told, but it's different when it's coming from someone who understands your plight, who understands your journey. And so that's really where my focus lies, is just having that authentic voice, that relatable, I guess you can say, connection to the people that I write about. So I've had the pleasure of writing about Martinique. I've had the pleasure of, writing about Black expats, people who have left America just to find a better life abroad. I spent a lot of time finding Black businesses all around the world, so not just here in the States, because it's important for our stories to get out there. Even if it starts within a Black-owned publication, it's still important that we also, know our story so that we can inspire each other, so that we can continue to create. So that's just a little bit of the work that I do.
I love that. And I know we'll go into it even more, but one thing that I found that really resonated with me personally that you're talking about was a lot of times, stories about Black travel are about traveling to a place that's predominantly Black and not people who are Black traveling. And this isn't just, a Black audience that you're writing for. You're writing for people. Like, you want the whole world to understand that we're all different, that even all Black people are different, they all travel for different reasons. We all have different experiences, right? And showcasing the diversity of that. I think that's so important.
Definitely.
Thanks, DeAnna. Vincie, would you like to go next?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Beth. First of all, thank you so much for having me on this panel with you amazing women. Hello, everyone. My name is Vincie. I am the founder and executive director of Rise Travel Institute. Rise is a 4-month young 501c3 nonprofit committed to inspiring sustainable travel through education. And what that means is that we're going to offer a quality tertiary level online certificate program on sustainable travel, but with a special focus on anti-oppression. Our goal is to help students to, see the world in a different way, to cultivate empathy, and to create space for the young generation to have difficult conversations and to ask the right questions. We hope to empower them to become mindful travelers and also future tourism professionals who will be eager to incorporate or build diversity and inclusion into their work in the future. So, our program will be free for students from underprivileged and underrepresented groups because we want to make sure that our program is accessible to everyone. And a little bit of background about how we started this organization. As risky as it may sound, we started the organization this summer in the midst of the pandemic because we believe that this is the best time to reimagine the future of travel and also to, I would say even more importantly, to play our part in responding to this anti-racism movement, both within and beyond the industry. And as far as I remember, we started pretty much around the same time when Wanderful had your first anti-racism town hall in June. And I'm nice. Glad to have this opportunity to be part of this second part of the conversation today. So thank you for having me again.
Of course. Well, and I think this is a particularly exciting conversation because a lot of us have developed things, whether we'll talk about how the travel industry has evolved over time, but things have come up that have been great. Rise has launched in the last 4 months, and Martinique, you've been doing some incredible things as well. So tell us about yourself.
Yes, good morning, everybody. I'm Martinique Lewis. You guys can all call me Marty, which most people do anyways. I'm a diversity and travel consultant. I'm the creative lead of Nomadness Travel Tribe, a Black travel movement in America, which most of you guys must know or might know. I'm the president and a founding member of the Black Travel Alliance, which started in June. And Always glad to be able to say this last one. I'm the creator of the ABC Travel Green Book, a new book that connects travelers to the African diaspora globally. I always credit my diversity and travel consulting, or my love for diversity and travel, to Wanderful because of the WIT Summit. When I first went there, when we were in Quebec in 2018, I was just there representing Black travel. And it was at WITS where I met dozens of other women who were like me, who were feeling left out, but they didn't look like me. And so that was the time that I really realized that it's not only Black people who feel left out, it's plus size travelers, it's travelers who are over the age of 50, it's Muslim travelers, it's Native American or indigenous people, it's, autistic travelers, and which just really helped open my eyes to so many things. And after that, I made the commitment to be able to represent everybody in this travel space. So I love to always say I have always sought out to create a name for myself and outgrow it. And I think this year has been one of those moments where I've really been able to help tackle the issue of diversity and inclusion within our space, because we have everybody at home now because we can't go anywhere during quarantine. But now we had to actually face the inequalities that have been happening in this travel industry. WITS has never had a problem with this. Wanderful has never had a problem with this in terms of diversity, but the rest of the industry did. So now that everybody is ready to listen, now that everybody is looking for ways to move forward, I am so proud of you guys for being able to hold these conversations and really get to, I guess, just the root so that it can look different from years to come. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks, Marty. And I appreciate your really kind words. And one thing I do want to kind of say and assert is that I think this topic of anti-racism work and anti-oppression work, it's not something, even though you've been so complimentary and you're like, you've never had a problem with this. I think saying to yourself, I've never had a problem with this, puts you in a position of never trying to do even better than you're doing at that point. And I don't think that this is something that we can just check a box and be like, great, I'm not racist, everything's perfect, I'm good. I think we always have to be questioning the decisions that we make, because you might not be a racist person, but you might say a racist thing that day, and you need to be checked on that, And so I think for everyone, it's a constant learning process. But I so appreciate everything, and I'm so glad that you all are here. And anyway, it's like I just want a glass of wine right now. 5 months pregnant, I can't.
I'll join you.
So let's talk about, give me 4 months and we will all have a glass of wine. So let's talk about what has happened, because Marty, you've launched your book. Vincie has the Rise Institute. DeAnna, you've been putting out all sorts of content. When we first met in June, and I know some of you were here, some of you were not, but that was a time when this talk about Black Lives Matter, about anti-racism, was pretty front and center in terms of our mainstream media, things that we were discussing. The one thing that really caused us to start moving forward is because we found that the travel industry was kind of behind in responding to a lot of this stuff. And I think part of it was, frankly, because the travel industry has been kicked in the gut this year. And, a lot of people have been furloughed and they've just been trying to bounce back. But I think a lot of our questions in that first event were kind of like, what should we be doing, especially in this time when we are kind of reinventing travel, and what should the travel industry be doing? And I count us all, by the way, as part of the travel industry, whether we're consumers, whether we're content creators, whether we're small business owners, or whether we work for major travel companies. I think we all fit. How do you feel like between, earlier this year and now, have you seen a lot of movement in terms of progression in anti-racism, or how has that been based on your experience?
I think that people have good intentions, and that they've had good intentions since June, but I think people still don't know exactly how to move forward. It's easy to say you want to do something, but not having a clear plan, or really making sure to hire those people who can really help you because they do understand, is something that I've seen is happening a lot. Or you want to ask people questions, but you don't want to necessarily pay for that. And one thing I tell people anytime that they hit me up in my inbox is that this is what I do. So for you to just ask me questions, if you can only imagine my life since George Floyd passed away, how many people hit me up on a daily basis, how many panels I speak at throughout the week, how many lunch and learns I have to do to major companies, and then just in general. So for people to not realize that they should pay you for your time, because this is exhausting to continuously talk about something that some people are going to get, some people aren't going to get, but it's mentally exhausting. It's physically exhausting. So brands should try to, for one, get a budget to actually designate for DE&I like training, but also understand, like, when you ask somebody a question, it is their knowledge. If you had it, you wouldn't have to ask them. So I think that most brands want to move forward, but they're still kind of not understanding how to do it. Now, the brands who are, I definitely give so many kudos to them, but also we have to understand that it's not something that happens overnight. In the midst of racial inequality, having a spotlight on it in the travel industry, we're also in the midst of a global pandemic with an industry who thrives off of people going to places. So budgets are depleted also. So it's kind of like they have to pick and choose where they want this money to go. But it's like you also have to pick and choose whether or not you're going to say Black Lives Matter and any lives matter and mean it, you know, with your marketing, with your internal staff. So it's harder than we think. But I think we are moving. We are moving. It's a tortoise and hare situation, and right now we're the tortoises.
I think it's a fair point that you're bringing up. That's just, you know, it's easy to say, okay, everybody, let's switch the light on and let's change this. But when you're talking from the business perspective, I mean, right, being able to implement things can be really hard. It requires somebody's time. It requires budget that maybe you don't have. It requires, you know, really like a strategic commitment. And, you know, I have the Wanderful team. We're a team of 9. Sometimes it's impossible for us to all get on the same page about something because we're all so busy with other things. Imagine a company that's hundreds, thousands of people trying to get all onto the same page about something that really does need to be part of their blood flow now, you know, like part of their basic foundation. So I think that's really wise. Vincie, DeAnna, do either of you have thoughts?
So I'll jump in. I guess for me over the last, few months, my only, gripe with certain, industries or businesses is just to like do their research before blindly reaching out. I think people see like, oh, Travel Noire, Black people, Black travelers, we want to, take advantage of the momentum of the movement. But then like they blindly reach out and they just send, content just hoping like, oh, can we just get this in front of your audience? And while that's, typically how it's done, I think doing a little bit of research on our audience base, on our demographic first, can also help, instead of just, I just want to connect with a Black business or a Black publication because, ... And then also, as Marty said, it's not an overnight thing. So you can't just, expect everything to just click into place at once. It's going to take back and forth conversation. It's going to take, figuring out, what can we do better on our end? And it's on both ends, honestly. So, I really think like doing the research first, and then just learning more about different diverse audiences. And this is not just about Black travelers. Obviously, we're talking about, all diversity, like Marty said, from, plus size travelers, Indigenous people, like she said, autistic or special needs people. Everyone travels. So you just have to know your audience, read the room, as people say, and then, kind of package something together that makes sense. Because otherwise, like I get these pitches or these, ideas and I'm like, this, what, like you didn't research our audience first
At all.
So, yeah.
Well, and is it enough? I think that's a valid question too of, Marty, when somebody's reaching out to you to speak on a panel, or DeAnna, somebody's reaching out to you to get in front of your audience, is that enough, or should we really just be looking at that as a starting point? Like the conversation is the beginning, but then after that, there's things you have to implement. You can't just be like, okay, we're going to do this one panel on diversity, and then we're going to, move on to the next hot topic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is a continuous learning process for every one of us, not just the tourism industry. But I would like to echo what DeAnna and Martinique just said. About this growing interest or growing willingness to engage in anti-racist conversations. But it seems like the tourism industry, the majority of it is still not really knowing how to do it, and they don't seem to know that there are actually tools out there that can actually help us do it. Look at the scorecard, by Black Travel Alliance. Look at the DEI standards by Travel Unity, for example, right? So I think it is also important to look at, because we are very focused on what's going on, what's happening in the US, but racism is not just American issue, it is global. And I don't think the majority of the global tourism industry is actually responding to the movement as we are in the United States. So we need to keep pushing the conversation, and also cultivate a future generation of travelers who would demand accountability from businesses based on those standards. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think I'm like, yep, exactly. No, and I think you raised a really great point. When we were putting this together, a lot of people were like, oh, okay, well, is this an event just for the industry? Well, in theory it is, but to my earlier point, you're part of the industry, even if you're spending. I mean, every time you spend money as a consumer, you're spending a lot of money. This isn't, an industry where you're spending $10 here, $20 here. Every time you go on a trip, you're spending hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. So each individual player in travel, each individual traveler has so much power to exert on where they want their industry to go. I want to ask you all about what you've seen develop. We're kind of saying, okay, some things have happened. There's a little bit of movement here. Are there any particular initiatives that you can point to that are like, yes, this is the right direction, or this is a company that's doing it right?
Can I start first?
Of course.
Yeah, so I'm not trying to put you, Beth, on a pedestal, but what you and your team did this year at Women's Travel Summit, Women in Travel Summit, just blew me away. As I was talking with Marty yesterday, and you, from 2015 in Boston to 2018 in Quebec City to the online one 2 weeks ago. Now, honestly, seriously, I witnessed the incredible growth of Wanderful and WITS over the years. From a time where discussions on ethical travel or diversity and inclusion would take place in smaller, family rooms instead of the big event hall, to today's WITS, where you and your team intentionally mainstreamed all these deep and important conversations about decolonizing travel, anti-racism, accessibility, diversity and inclusion, how to travel mindfully on indigenous lands, etc. It's just amazing. And I love every bit of this year's WITS, which was so thoughtfully put together. And, with these anti-racism town hall, as you just said, it's not just a one-off thing. It should be a continuous conversation. So with these anti-racism town hall, you have created a space for us to check in with each other, to learn from one another, and to hold one another accountable. And I think this is absolutely beautiful. So yeah, this is one of the best examples that I can think of.
I just have to pass the love over to Ariel Goldberg and Marissa Sutera, who are running WITS and, putting those things together. But I think that also speaks to making sure you have a team that speaks on your behalf and kind of representation. And because if it were up to me, I don't know, I think we just talk about ice cream all day. So not kidding. But, having people who can really share their opinions and say, this needs to be front and center of the conversation, I think that's a really key, and for every travel company. In fact, Ronnie has a great question, and I know, Marty, you just put into the comments, but I wanted to bring this to the main stage too, because we talked about, companies doing better and specifically how this plays into budgeting. And he asks any advice on how an org who hasn't previously budgeted for DEI initiatives might actually tap into previous budget lines, ways to make it so it's more of a reallocation, maybe instead of feeling like a totally new expense. Like, have any of you come across other organizations that have managed to find budget or have ideas of how companies can actually make that pivot?
Like I was saying with him, I don't work internally in companies, so I don't know what budgets look like. I don't know what they spent the year before that, but I know if something is important to you, you will find the money to make it happen. And if D&I is important to you, you reallocate those funds. Instead of paying for lunch every Friday, maybe you save that money on Fridays for 6 months and you allocate that into a D&I budget. There are brands who come at me and I give them my prices and they say they can't do it. And I say, it's no problem. There's somebody else out there who can help you, but I'm letting you know that this is what I'm charging. And more than likely they come back 2 weeks later and said, we've been able to find some budget in order to do this. Prime example, there's another big conference that happens in London every year, WTM. They normally don't pay people. They normally don't pay speakers. Throughout this whole time, they have asked me at least 7 to 8 times to speak on a panel at WTM. I've turned them down 6 times. And I said, if you guys keep coming to me without budget to be able to speak at your conference, I'm going to continue to say the same thing. The last time was somebody else. I gave them my price and they said, okay, fine. WTM has been going on for years and they have never paid their speakers until 2020 because it's time. So like I said, either you make the decision to be an ally and to be a pioneer in this space, to say, yes, D&I is important and I'm going to move forward to it, or you're going to just give us lip service and say it's important and then do nothing about it. I said, you will find the resources if it's truly important to you because you care about how your brand looks moving forward.
So I agree with both of them.
Vincie,
yeah, I've never actually dealt with the budget specifically, but I will say, as a writer, I do kind of just get, here, can you just write about this? But then I'll go onto their pages and I'll see, influencers or, non-Black creators. And they're having the time of their life in these destinations or these hotels. And I'm like, so we're not worthy to experience the same, but you want us to write about it. And then it's just well, we don't really have, kind of like what Marty said, we don't have the funds, we don't have the budget. And I guess that always kind of bothered me because it's you can find the budget for who you think are mainstream, creators or influencers. But then you look at minorities or minority brands and publications. And the thing that people always say is well, Travel Noire is a blog. And I'm we're not a blog. If you do your research, okay. I mean, we are an entire company. We have multiple brands within our entire umbrella of Blavity. So it's not just Travel Noire, we're under the Blavity umbrella. And I mean, we have departments on top of departments. If people really did their research to know who they're dealing with as far as publications, as far as brands, you'd be surprised. And you're really missing out on great opportunities by kind of lowballing us. Just because, you kind of take it as, well, oh, I'll just throw you this little, I'll send you a t-shirt or, well, I'm giving you exposure. No, we're giving you exposure. So, I think people just need to really, again, read the room, know who you're talking to.
Yeah.
And as I always say, it's a slang term, but I say, the price just went up. We're not just going to settle for, anything, because we work just as hard as, a Travel and Leisure. We work just as hard as CNN Travel. Sure, our name isn't out there because, we are minority owned. But, as this movement has been happening, yes, we've slowly been coming to the light. Thank God. But I just pray that, other companies, other brands, other businesses just really, really start to understand that, minority owned businesses, brands, publications, we all work just as hard. We all have the audiences that are eager to see what you have to offer. But it's just a matter of how you present it to us so that we can in turn present it properly to our audience. Because if you just send me, for instance, you know, hey, you know, I'm from Timbuktu, you know, I have this hotel, can you write about it? But how does that appeal to a minority traveler? You know, what offerings in the area, you know, could you say, you know, what would make our audience feel comfortable, you know, coming to your area without any proper knowledge? Like, unless we're able to show them firsthand, or even if you show us in your own branding and marketing that you appeal to diverse travelers, like, our travelers are going to look at it like, this doesn't look interesting to me. So, you know, just really, you know, do your research, your audience, read the room, and spend the money.
Well, and can I say one thing too, which is, maybe this is a wild idea, but I don't actually think DEI should only be a department.
No.
Like, shouldn't it be part of every budget? Because this isn't just, we're not just talking about ethics here. We're not just like, okay, let's be inclusive. I mean, we should, you know, because it is good. Like, let's be inclusive because it's the right thing to do. But also, let's be inclusive because Black people have money. So that fits in the marketing budget. That fits in the sales budget, you know, and the affiliate marketing budget. And like HR, sure, absolutely. But I think you can make compelling arguments to all of this. Like, if we need to be reaching this new market segment in a meaningful way, we have got to start spending our marketing on other audiences besides the ones that we're already spending on. So I don't think it should just be like, let's tap into the diversity and inclusion budget. It should be like, let's tap into, you know, the operations of this company because it's going to make us grow. Anyway, I'm done. Sorry. Vincie, did you have anything? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I absolutely agree with you, because like, when we talk about diversity, equity and inclusion, it's actually in every single part of our operations. It should be, you know, for the example of RISE, it should be in our curriculum. It should be, you know, in the way we market our materials. It should be in our student demographic. It should be, you know, reflected in terms of the choice of our guest lecturers and speakers. So it indeed, like, we shouldn't have like a separate budget for DEI, but like every department should, you know, have a budget for, you know, DEI in their department, like how to improve their department. So absolutely agree with you.
Totally. Well, and let's talk. So we, you know, I want to, because I know we have, okay, we still have about 14 minutes left, so we're good. But I want to talk about specific action steps, because we, you know, in our last session, when we met in June, one of the things we really talked about is identifying for yourself. You know, this isn't just an event where we're saying, okay, travel should do this person over in this corner should do that. I think what we're asking is, what should I be doing? We're all here at the table. What should I be doing individually to help move travel forward? And we had some really awesome breakout sessions where people kind of looked internally and went, okay, you know, as a non-Black ally, for example, I should be making sure I'm recognizing when I should use my voice and when I should be passing the mic on to someone else. When I travel somewhere, I should make sure that I'm asking real questions about what the real history of a place is, and not just talking about how lovely and beautiful it is. You know, in terms of these different action steps that we should be taking, first is, are there any things that you all personally are working on, or that you would, you know, encourage other people to really focus on? And then the second part of that is, what advice would you have for them to actually take action and implement those things? So what should we do, and how should we actually get it done?
I would say, for me, from the writing perspective, you know, for brands that are trying to appeal to, you know, Black travelers, minority travelers, is actually hire or contract minority writers. You know, because not always can we relate to someone that doesn't look like us. And so, you know, not just reaching out to a blogger and saying, hey, you know, can you write this listicle? You know, and like, going back, you know, we'll give you the exposure by posting you on our page or whatever. Like, no, like, set aside a budget to hire more, you know, diverse writers, because people identify with people who look like them, who relate to the same things that they do. And so that also helps your audience. Like, it's weird for me and this is no offense to anyone out there, but if I'm reading a story on diversity from a white writer, I can't relate. So it's like, you don't really understand, what that means. So that would be my first action step for people who do have publications out there, who have blogs, who put out, written content, to actually hire more diverse writers, actually pay them to write, because that would also, change the dynamic of your readership, and bring in, those people that you're looking for. So yeah, that would be a start for me.
Great.
Why don't you go first? Why don't you go first? Please.
The first thing I would say is make your decision, your real decision. Are you going to keep the same energy that you had on Blackout Tuesday? Everybody wants to run and post that black square. And then some people had the nerve to take it down, like we wouldn't notice, but we do notice. We notice everything, and not to put pressure on you. But like I said, probably the last time that we spoke, allyship is not something you turn on and off like a light switch. It's 365 days a year, 24/7 to the day that you die. You're now married to everybody else. It's not just you. It's not just you not realizing that you're privileged. It's not just you realizing or not realizing unconscious bias and what that is you really making the decision to move forward, saying that everybody matters. And how can you move forward doing that? Well, the first way is you can tap into inclusive communities online. We're all on social media. Use a hashtag if you want to learn how to do something. I always tell people, travel with somebody who doesn't look like you, who can't see, who's in a wheelchair, who might be bigger than you, who might be older than you, because what that does is that really opens your eyes up to how other people travel. I tell people all the time, I had one of the best trips when I traveled with Sassy Wyatt. If you follow her on Instagram, a blind traveler. And it wasn't one of the best trips because we had such a good time, because we didn't. It was one of the best trips because my eyes were open, that the fact that her eyes weren't. That she could not visibly see. And we were on a press trip in England, and they set something up for somebody who could see. And I had to tell them, you guys expect her to write for you, but if you're taking a graffiti tour and the tour guide just says, now over to your left is a Banksy's such and such, and he did this in this time, she cannot see. So over to her left is what of Banksy's? Is it 3 figures? Is it a cat that's orange? Is it a vibrant pink flower? But tell her more so she can tell people more. And then they had us taking a graffiti class where the man is showing us how to spray paint. And I had to tell him, you must stop, because I have to get her up. I have to position her feet how you're telling us to position, because you're telling us, look like this. This is how you want to stand. I had to move her arms so she understood that it was from left to right, so that she too could participate in the activity. So I had to go back and tell him, your destination is not set up for somebody who's visually impaired. So I say travel with somebody so you can see things from their perspective, understand that, and then figure out ways to move. There's tons of literature out now that will help you. But also, if you just follow Travel Noire, if you just follow Nomadness Tribe, if you just follow the Cosmos, if you just follow Travel Latina, if you just follow Muslim Travel Girl, and I'm giving you game right now. So these are things that you can write down, but you can find them all on social media by just using a hashtag. If you just follow these communities, then you'll be exposed to some things that other people want. Also, there are tons and tons of reports that are about to come out. Black Travel Alliance just put out the Pull Up for Travel campaign results that kind of just sheds light on how people were from Blackout Tuesday to now. But Black Travel Alliance is doing something with MMGY to create a study. Nomadness Tribe also, we did a research study also. And when these reports come out, you guys should get them. Why? Because you've never had this information before. There's Mandala research that comes out every 5 years, but those numbers aren't necessarily as accurate as we want them to have. For the Madness's research, it's hyper travelers. So it's travelers like us, people who are traveling every single day. For the MMGY study, it's just Black people who are travelers, period. So you're going to get 2 sets of results that are going to be instrumental in moving forward on how to understand how to connect with this inclusive community. And really, we should be doing that for every niche. You know, nobody has done a plus size travel report yet, but you don't understand that in this hotel room is your actual doorway, you know, big enough so that a plus size person doesn't have to walk through sideways? Is your surf lessons, do you guys have a wetsuit that's, you know, 3X? It's things like that that you guys have to understand. For transgender travelers, how are they going to feel, you know, when they check into the hotel and their ID is somebody different than what you can physically see? Do you have a bathroom that makes them not have anxiety because they don't have to choose whether or not they have to go into men and women? So it's really about the awareness, but you can figure it out because there's tons of literature out there for all of us to read. So yeah, that's what I think.
Well, and a heads up too, and then Vincie, I want to hear your answer to this, but we are using the hashtag Move Travel Forward for this event. So feel free to post on social, following along, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you're going. And but also that's our challenge to everyone who participates in these Moving Forward events is actually think of 3 actionable steps that you can take starting now to foster anti-racism in your work. You know, what are 3 things that you can do? It doesn't have to be everything. I think sometimes we get stuck in this place of like, I have to do, you know, everything and kind of solve the problem. And again, this is a lifetime thing that we're working on. So what are 3 things that you can do now so you can start implementing those actions? Vincie, what are some of the things that you're advocating for and that, you know, your advice for how people can actually make change?
Right. So first of all, I'd like to echo Marty, and you know, everything that you said it so beautifully. I wouldn't say that I have advice for the attendees because I'm also still learning, but I think one thing that I can share is, you know, my perspective as a non-Black ally. Just like people get educated. every time we say that you know, when we don't know about something, you know, you don't know what you don't know. So like, it's important for us to keep learning. You know, I hear a lot from my fellow Asians. They would say, or, you know, Asians like other people of color, all experience different kinds of discriminations and microaggressions. And, you know, unfortunately, this got exacerbated because of COVID-19. And we're not invalidating those people's experiences, but we need to recognize that we're not talking about like the same degree of oppression. And we're not talking about the same history of oppression here. And many of my affluent, you know, Asian friends, they are colorblind because they believe that just because they personally don't experience much oppression as people of color, that racism doesn't exist. And that's largely due to the lack of conversations like today's that can foster understanding of differences and also encourage reflection. So, you know, I'd say keep learning, get educated. As Marty said, subscribe to Black writers, newsletters, blogs, magazines, and, you know, such as that awesome Anti-Racism Daily, for example. Follow Black creators and bloggers on social media, listen to their stories, do research, look for Black-owned businesses in your neighborhood and travel destinations, support them when you can, and stop saying that you are not racist because you have Black friends. No, to be a genuine ally, you have to be actively leveraging the power of your privilege to help elevate their voices. And also, if you're a business owner or a part of you know, an organization's leadership, I think it's important that you communicate your values clearly on your website. And if possible, include DEI policies and sustainability policies and show how they are reflected in the work that you do. And if you are a traveler or a customer, always dig deeper and make sure that the companies or organizations don't just say they care about DEI, but that they actually have policies that they adhere to in the things that they do. And if they don't, reach out to them and ask questions, demand transparency and accountability.
Love it. Beautiful. Well, and we're 2 minutes to the end, and you guys have all said some brilliant, brilliant things. Let's do this last question, and I'll go Vincie, Marty, DeAnna, so we'll go backwards, which is, our next session, I believe, or one of the upcoming ones, is all about what next, right? Okay, what do we need to do in 2021 now that we're starting to look into this year, both as creators as well as industry? What do you hope that 2021 looks like for travel?
I'd say the first thing that I want to see is that this conversation is still there and that we're still continuing, this kind of conversation, and that more companies and organizations are taking like real steps to make sure that they incorporate diversity and inclusion into everything that they do. And we, at Rise would also be holding ourselves accountable when we launch our pilot program. We want to make sure that you hold us accountable and tell us, hey, you said that you are going to look at all these sustainability issues through an anti-oppression lens, but why are you doing this? Like what is lacking? And we would love to, to continue to grow and improve. So I'm hoping the same for the rest of the industry as well.
I definitely want to see the industry I don't want to say bounce back because we'll never be the same.
Yeah.
We want to see the industry start to, move forward again. But this time, because we've had the opportunity to make a change with the change, I tell brands all the time, if you haven't started your Black History Month campaigns this month, like get to it, because put the same emphasis you put on, in June for Pride Month with your travel brand, put the same emphasis with Black History Month. I also tell brands, if you didn't say anything about Filipino Heritage Month this month, there's something wrong with that. So I want to see people be more mindful of everybody when they move forward. I would love to see their marketing plans change. I've been screaming this to the rooftop for the past 3 years. I do the diversity and travel report card every single year and try to give those case studies so that brands pick up, this is how to move forward and be more inclusive, but it won't happen until it happens. So I would love to just see an emphasis on that as everybody is going back around, as everybody is kind of having a rebirth. Just do it with diversity and inclusion top of mind, not as a check box, but as something that you are moving forward with, period.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of Marty, definitely, as we, begin to rebuild the travel industry, just now to be more intentional of being, inclusive. So as you're rebuilding budgets, as you're rebuilding marketing plans, decks, et cetera, start to weave in, those more diverse options into your total brand, because, now it's kind of like a restart. So you have room to do this right now. So it's not like you're all of a sudden scrambling to like figure it out. Like you're figuring out now how to restructure everything after taking this hard hit, due to the pandemic. So now is the time more than ever, and just continue to have those conversations, continue to do the research, because again, it's not going to be, overnight. It's not going to, come January 1st, 2021, like, oh, we figured it out. Like, no, continue just to reach out to different brands, different content creators, and ask them, and be genuine, but ask them, what can we do better on our end? There's nothing wrong with having the conversation. I mean, some people you may have to pay them to have the conversation because that's the work that they do. But I mean, just be more intentional on having the conversations and not just thinking like, oh, if I just post, a Black content creator, every 3 posts I'm doing the part, or, we, feature, 10 Black writers in this post. Like, no, like be intentional, continue to do the work, and just continue to like slowly weave it in, because I mean, you have the room to do so, like now more than ever.
I really love that you highlighted. Sorry, go ahead. I really love what like the way DeAnna highlighted the word intentional. We really have to intentionally do it, because we are this beginning of a movement that is long overdue, and we're talking about deconstructing or dismantling an entire system built on white supremacy, and not only in tourism industry, but like how the entire world has been socialized into. So a lot of work still needs to be done, and we need to actively and intentionally keep pushing, and we need to practice what we preach, not just in the way, like in our work, but also as a person, as an individual. So yeah, thank you both.
And this is yeah. Oh gosh, thank all three of you. And I was just going to add that it being October, this is the time that a lot of companies are doing their strategic planning. And if you, as a creator, you should do strategic planning too. Think about what your focus is going to be in 2021 and use this time to actually reflect on that, so that come January, you can start taking action. So DeAnna, Vincie, Martinique, thank you so much for taking the time to really share this all with us. And everyone, I highly encourage you, check out Travel Noire, check out the Rise Institute, check out Black Travel Alliance, and go buy the ABC Travel Green Book, because it's now on sale.
Thank you. Congrats.
Thanks,
thank you, everyone. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. So I think we'll bring Karisma back on stage, and we're going to take a quick break. Our next panel should be starting now, but I think we could probably take a 2-second bathroom break. We'll see what Karisma tells us, because
yes, most definitely.
And what do you think, Karisma? Do you want to go to the next one?
Yes. Can you hear me? Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. Yep,
no,
I can now.
No worries. No, we're actually going to take a 2 to actually give us 5-minute little bathroom break. I am actually going to bring on Wanderful's radio. We're partnered with Pandora for that one. So I'm going to go ahead and just let it play so we have a little music, but give us 5 minutes and we'll be right back.
See y'all soon.